wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans and one chaos coordinator geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we're going to have to tell you that Madam Stabby Stab is not here today. Apparently there was a nail emergency and things had to be painted and filed and sharpened and whatever the ladies do with their fingers, she's doing.
Oh, it was a big deal. Like, she's like, I got to paint these. I can't go online. I'm like, no, honey, no one's going to see your nails. She's like, oh, no. And I'm like, okay. So,
yep.
So the bright side is the hair coloring went off without a pitch. The downside is that the result of the hair coloring got on her white nails that she painted, with one accent nail being like a summery yellow, and now her entire world is destroyed. So she's got to fix that.
So the cool thing, if you notice the episode, is the closing of the era of Verida, which is her fantasy world.
Verida. You can't do it. It's my last name and
you add an I. Oh, you add the I every time. That extra I.
How do you? Is it Verida for Verida?
Verida.
What did I say?
Veridia. Like Viridian.
Which is also a cool name. You can use it in a book.
Yeah, I'm hard of hearing, so some of the nuance of pronunciation always gets by me. And I'd like to have a better excuse, but I did rupture my eardrums a few times.
Between you being deaf, me being mostly blind, and Stabby being dyslexic. Wow.
Well, and I'm colorblind, so that makes it interesting. But so because you came on the show in season 2, when we rebranded the Blasters and Blades with the first book in this universe, one, you've written hecka fast because it's only been 2.5 years. And two, it felt like kind of cool to bookend the beginning and the end with you. Now, I don't know when book 2 or book 1 was published versus when we interviewed you. But we did talk to you about the first one, so.
Yeah. It was a couple of months. I think that I had book 3 out and 4 coming or something along that timeline. But it was really the launch of the series in the world. And I had an idea. Yeah.
These are all the books she's written in the last 2.5 years.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, don't count them. You'll feel bad. So it felt kind of cool to bring you back to do the ending.
Yeah, I was really excited to get the beginning and the end of a major era of my writing world. And
so if you question some of our answers, dear listener, we are recording this in July, but we're going to air this as soon as she can get the pre-order up. So sometimes the back end stuff takes longer than we'd like, editing, covers, and all that. So if you listen to it later in the year, just know it was hot when we recorded this thing. All right.
Yeah.
And if we get to it in the winter, you're going to be like, can we have some of that heat from the past? Because in the middle of the winter, you want summer. In the middle of summer, you always want winter to come. It's sort of circle of life.
Dude, it got so hot up here on our mountain that I bought a inflatable pool that's about 3 feet off the ground. Or
just to feel in.
Yep.
Just yeah. It's like I don't want to spend the money on the air conditioning, but I kind of want to be cooled down. Maybe a margarita. I don't know.
Works for me. Now, because this is the Blasters and Blades podcast, we do have to do the religion question. But you've been on so many times, we had to go far in the field to find questions you haven't answered yet. So we're going to mix this one up.
Here we go.
Fringe, Eureka, or Warehouse 13?
Absolutely, hands down, Eureka. I love the optimism and the sense of play and the sense of joy and just go do stuff. And we still in this house use the phrase, he Fargo'd that button.
What about you, Nick?
I'm going to have to go with Fringe because I haven't really seen Eureka, even though I've heard great things. I just haven't gotten around to it. It's on my queued list, and it's just sitting there going like, bro. I'm like, hey, man, I'm revisiting Supernatural. Sorry.
I think we ought to do an episode just where we talk about the Fringe because it's got some interesting concept. It is very rare in modern fiction to see fathers portrayed in a good light where the dad isn't a bumbling idiot who could, who would be dead without his wife and kids, saving him from himself. So, I mean, he's a flawed character, the main character in Fringe. He did a lot of dark and dirty things to save his son. You could argue, is it really his son when he stole someone else, the other version of him's son from a different dimension, which is kind of
Timelines are weird.
Yeah,
Really
the timelines are weird.
Stuff.
But like the
It's
idea
like a
that
version of
he
Doctor Who.
couldn't save his son as a doctor from the sickness, so he wanted a chance to to do it over again. Like as a father, like or a mother, you can kind of relate to that level of the dark deeds you do to protect your kids.
Yeah.
And it does grapple with that series. Does grapple with, is it really you if it's the you from another dimension, or is it just someone who has your DNA?
Eureka plays a lot of those games too. They have lot of timelines and a lot of parenting dilemmas running around.
I love all of these, but if I have to pick Warehouse 13, because I fell in love with Amanda Tapping in Stargate, and she is in Warehouse 13 too. And I'm just saying, right time, right place. I'd have made my move. I'm just saying. And she's a funny actor, outside of the fact she's attractive. She's a funny actor because she would ad-lib stuff in Stargate all the time. She would make callbacks to MacGyver, and he wouldn't know she was doing it until the scene, and he'd have to just roll with it. And then they ended up leaving it because their off-the-cuff banter was so much better than whatever the script was. I like actors.
She's got great comedic timing.
She does. And if you've seen her any of her convention panels where they've recorded it, you see it there too. Robin Williams used to do the same thing. He'd just ad-lib stuff sometimes. And then you get to watch the other actors sort of react to that, and that makes it better, I think. Mm-hmm. It's that slice of crazy that I can dig.
We dig the chaos.
That's why we're friends. Oh, yeah.
That's why we're friends. All right. And because we are polytheistic here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, Hercules, Xena, or Highlander?
Here, my loyalties are a bit shallower. I adore Xena as an attitude, and Lucy Lawless has just ridden that character through everything else she's ever done, and I adore that whole situation. And the costumes are winners, man. They just are.
I liked Hercules. You learn a lot of cool things about the backstory. Like apparently he was working his body out because he did all of that with no drugs, be it steroids or other legal versions of that. He did that all just natural in the gym, but he was pushing his body so hard past the normal limit that he was having a mini heart attack a day as he pushed his body for that series. And I can appreciate his dedication, and I love Highlander. There could be only one, the swordplay, the history, Duncan MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod. I like all that, but I'm going to have
playing a Spaniard.
Yeah. I'm going to have to go with Xena just because Lucy Lawless. Hello. What men of a certain age didn't have a crush on her? I don't know. It's her and Gabrielle. I couldn't decide. I'd take them both.
I don't want to share too much information, but because of that show, I'm pretty sure I increased the stock price of Jergens lotion.
Oh my goodness. Oh, the other cool part about Xena though is the fight scenes were just so over the top. Like she'd do that yelling in the high pitch and she'd just bounce around. Physics be damned, but you could get away with it because God tier energy going on. I think she was
goofy fun.
Right. It was just goofy fun.
You could do that back in the day.
Oh yeah, it was so great. Just that over the top syndicated show stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And she had that circle weapon.
Directed some of those.
Yeah, that circle weapon that was basically a metal frisbee of death. Mm-hmm. They should trademark that, frisbee of death. But it was so cool to watch her throw that and boomerang around and hit people.
They classified it as a glaive? Isn't it?
I think so. But
Kroll.
In the 80s and 90s, everyone was obsessed with boomerangs for some strange reason. It appeared in a lot of shows. And then, of course, you'd buy one and it always hit you in the head and never come back right.
Or maybe that's hit your little sister with it, and now you're not allowed to play with it.
Yeah, that happened for lawn darts with me. You hit them in the leg once with the sharp point, and people get all bent out of shape.
I caught my best friend Scotty in the calf with one.
Yeah. Did you ever do the lawn darts, Chloe?
No, that was not my scene. I am bait to mosquitoes like you would not believe. So the outdoor games all have a really negative feel to me because I would come in and just look like I had a pox. And it's like, this is not fun.
I had that same problem, but I had to get the testosterone out somehow. So, the mosquito bites were trade off to the wrestling matches. So it was just kind of something boys have to endure, I think. But Nick, before we move on, you didn't tell us what your favorite.
Oh man, I love Highlander. Don't get me wrong, all three choices are great. I watched them all because that's what you did on a Saturday afternoon when all your friends were sick or whatever, because that was syndicated TV. You got Hercules, you got Xena, and like a lot of big stars got their starts in those shows. So, but for me, the Highlander series, the television series was great. But also the movies.
I had a problem with
was
movies.
Great. That, like
the movies didn't follow a timeline.
No,
there were huge plot holes you could drive a Mack truck through. Like if he's aging because the quickening has happened and he's the last one, and then the next one suddenly a different one pops up because they were buried underwater, so it was constantly dying. But if he's alive and dying, then there shouldn't have been the quickening, so the timeline doesn't quite work. And then they couldn't decide whether they were immortal or whether they were aliens. It got a little weird.
We could do a whole show on that where I'll just talk shit about Highlander.
Yeah,
we should. But yeah, so Highlander was a good one. There's a lot of funny memes out of that. It's the running joke where the dad of twins as the twins in a playpen with a foam stick or whatever, and like there can be only one college fund, and like Last Man Standing.
And it's been used as a pop culture reference in multiple movies, like Zack and Miri Make a Porno. The two Zacks. They're like, there can only be one from Highlander, man. It's like, dude, I would have put you in a wall locker, bro.
All right, Chloe, because of your genre of choice, we're going to mix it up. You've answered about your favorite dinosaurs and your favorite zoo animal. So what is your favorite fantasy creature?
This is a trial of loyalty because it's either the unicorn or the dragon. And do you pick innocence or do you pick experience? Do you pick wisdom? And it's really hard, but today I'm leaning dragon. Ask me on a different day, you get a different answer.
Okay, what about you, Nick?
Did I show you the dragon I 3D printed?
What's that?
Did I show you the dragon that I 3D printed?
I don't think so, no.
Oh, I'm going to have to put it in the chat. It came out really cool because I got this like multicolored iridescent filament. So it like printed out like these really nice blues and teals. And then towards the end of it, it gave him like a gold mohawk all the way down from his head down to his tail. It turned out super awesome. I don't think I could recreate that if I tried because of just how much I.
So Nick, write this down. You need to put that picture in this file for this episode. So when I air this episode, I can throw that picture in the comments so people that are listening at home can see it too.
Yeah. And then they're going to want one. So for me, answering the question, I'm going to go with, and I don't know. No, it's fantasy. The Cheshire Cat.
Ooh.
From Alice in Wonderland?
Oh, yeah. That's my boy.
The spirit of chaos lives strong.
Oh, yeah. I married a chaos coordinator, so that makes sense.
I don't know. I'm torn because I love werewolves, but I also love dragons. They're kind of cool. So were-dragon. I think they call those shifters, but like it's ask me on any given day, I might give you a different answer. But I also really love the dwarves because there's something I like about that ornery race that's just like they don't give a damn. Just give them their beer and they're okay, but you get in their way and they'll break your bones. And there's
nothing stops them. They just keep going.
And I like that they're generally written as kind of cantankerous individuals. So I don't know. Something about that speaks to me. I don't know what that says about me, but actually I do know. I just don't want to think about it.
No, I identify with dwarves. I wrote a long blog post about I am a digger dwarf, and that's what I do. It's why my books are as numerous as they are. I just run off and go dig in a straight line for as long as I care to. I'm not distracted. I just keep digging, and I keep digging, and I'm supposed to do something with this at some point. But I'm straight on. I identify with that.
Yeah, I don't know. There's the single-mindedness. Dwarves are basically weaponized stubbornness.
Yes.
That is the dwarf archetype. And I relate to that.
So I definitely relate to dwarfs. Because sometimes you just want to go outside and chop wood with an axe. No reason. You don't need wood. It's summertime. You're not doing any fires.
I wrestled and ran cross country in high school. I played rugby in college and briefly for the Army team. And what I can tell you is I wasn't faster than everybody else. I wasn't better at them technically. I was just stubborn enough to endure the pain and hang on to the right moment, because you don't have to get right all the time. You only have to be right at the right time, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me, weaponized stubbornness is just a way of life.
Yeah.
You just got to grind. That's right. That's the infantry way. When you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bullshit.
That's right. If all right. Do that, start smashing shit.
If you can't do that, get promoted and become an officer. Is that how it works, right?
Yeah, but I know my officer career wasn't going to last that long, because the Army was changing, and I was still had the NCO mindset, which my troops loved me because I had that NCO mindset, and I didn't want to do dumb officer stuff. But I wasn't. When you get into the officer world, it gets really like political, Mm-hmm. Where the NCOs, you're based on your merit, the things that you've done. That's how you're judged. The officer world is like, what other officers you screw over to get promoted, and then they wore that as a badge of honor. Now I'm spilling all the tea on the officers.
So like officers is more about networking, and NCOs is more about, did you get the item done? Checklist, accomplished.
Yeah.
Task.
Like doing the effing job was the NCO way. The officer's like, get in the way of good judgments in 1776.
So speaking of things that are old, no, coffee is not. Well, yeah, coffee's been around for a while, since 1776. Once we threw the tea in the harbor, we started drinking coffee. I actually did that a few years ago as a joke around the 4th of July, is that if the Boston Tea Party hadn't happened, would we still be drinking tea, or would we have become a coffee nation anyway? Food for thought. So
coffee, I enjoy tea, but coffee's better.
Absolutely. Coffee or tea, and how do you take it? You don't mix it up at all? I was hoping for a different answer.
She's a Coke girl, man. We
all day, every day, man.
Like, one of these days, she's going to surprise me and be like, I had hot chocolate today.
I think the other way she's going to surprise us is like, I switched up from Coke to actual Coke.
Or Pepsi.
Tough, man. How do you think I get the books done?
That's gotta be it.
This is why we like
would let me do it. I would get so many comic books done, because I was like, I can't stop. I gotta draw. Gotta get the synergy out.
How do you get so much done? Just the math, the usual.
Just Coke.
So do you ever mix it up for your caffeine? Is it just all Coke all the time?
No, it's that hot liquids give me an upset stomach. So there's just really not a lot out there that it's like, I'm going to go try that because that sounds great. No, I stick with what I like.
So have you tried like cold? Why you can't get cold hot chocolate? That's just chocolate milk. You could get cold coffee or cold tea.
Your iced coffees and iced tea I've tried and just haven't stuck with it long enough to develop a taste.
How do you feel about Dr. Pepper?
I can't even stand by smell, man.
Oh, as a Texan, that hurts my soul.
I'm sorry.
What about Pepsi?
I'll get over it. I got booze.
Have you become a Coke loyalist, or will you drink Pepsi too?
Oh, I am definitely Coke, no Pepsi.
I don't like the way Pepsi tastes.
Order at lunch because there is no Pepsi. There is no Coke on the menu.
If there's no Coke on the, if there's a Pepsi company instead of a Coke company, I just get water.
Yeah.
No,
Pepsi's okay, but like if I'm gonna drink a Coke, if I have my preference, because I live in San Diego, I live in Southern California, so you got taquerias all over the place. You know what you get in a taqueria? Mexican Coke.
That stuff's good. Have you had that?
Real cane sugar.
Oh. I have. They sell it in glass bottles at Sam's Club. You can actually get real Mexican Coke, and the bottles are just glass bottle Coke is an old school treat that feels luxurious at a level that I feel bad drinking it. So I get myself a flat of Mexican glass bottle Cokes, and they sit for a year, and it's like, this is stupid.
You should drink that. You should make a float out of it, because those are amazing.
It's in my head.
You got to do it. You got to get through that mental buffer.
So we brought you on to talk about the closing of the Verida era of your writing. But
Yeah.
when you opened this up that you were going to be doing this interview, you had some questions that fans kind of wanted us to ask as we talk about. So first, how did you get into writing? Because that was one of the things they wanted you to elaborate on a little more detail.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I have been writing for my whole life. That's been something I've loved to do. I stayed in at recess in second grade to do a choose your own story that I was writing. You know, I'm a nerd. But when I
Lovely.
really went for it and like turned the corner from being the serious book nerd to the I'm gonna write, I was in eighth grade and I would literally walk with a book in front of my face and watch people's feet from underneath in between classes. And then I would get to my seat. And I would put the book underneath the desk. I would follow the lesson for long enough to figure out what was going on. And then I would return to reading. And I would read. I would literally check 2 books out of the library when I got to school in the morning and check them in before I got on the bus to go home. I would read 2 books a day. And my math teacher was sort of furious with me. She was a lovely woman. I loved her. She loved me like her own, but she was furious with me that I was reading through math class all day, every day. So she started searching me for books and confiscating them on my way into the room. And so I put a notebook in my lap and started writing all through class instead. And I just haven't ever stopped. I've been filling up notebooks with stories ever since. And I got to a point where if I'm going to do something with this, it needs to be digital. So I don't write in notebooks anymore because you can't read my handwriting and the pencil smudges and it's a disaster. But that instinct of I don't have something to do, I'm going to go create fiction in my head or on a paper, whatever. That's been one of the defining features of my life since I was very young.
So
this
this is
similar journey, but
Hmm?
we have a similar journey, but instead of writing novels, I chose comic books.
Mm-hmm.
So like all my notepads inside of my books, with the covers, drawings, doodles. And then, you know, 20, 30 years later, yeah, I like working on paper, but I've gone the digital route, just drawing stuff on the computer.
Did you ever do the where you take the end of a page and you draw the little stick figure so when you flip through it, it would move?
Oh yeah, your own little 2D animation.
Yeah, I used to do those for fun. That stick figures are about as far as my art made it. So did when you started writing, did you know that you wanted to do it professionally when you were younger? Like what point did you realize, not that I just want to write, but I want to write and let other people read it and see if I can make a go at this?
I was certainly one of those self-centered little children who would push my writing onto anybody who would express an interest in it because I couldn't understand that they were doing that out of politeness rather than real interest. And I think that I also knew sometimes that they were doing it out of politeness, but I was going to give it to them anyway because I want somebody to read my stuff. And that was always really valuable to me. I love attention. I love attention, and that was really easy for me to go after that. But at the same time, I was very pragmatic, even as a very young child. My high school guidance counselor literally took me down the hallway into another guidance counselor's office and said, tell her what you just told me. And I gave her a step-by-step life plan that went up until I was about 40, that was fiscally centered. This is where I'm going to go to college. This is the degree I'm going to earn. This is the salary I'm going to draw. This is how much I'm going to save in order to pay off a house. And then after that, I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom. This was my life plan. And she was just floored because that's always how I've done things. I am a plotter in that way. I'm not an outliner. I hate outlines when I write, but I have a sense of I need a plan to get where I want to go. So I did not put writing on the list ever because I knew that writing was not an option. This is not a career. That's silly. And had gone off, and I was almost 10 years into a technical career that I loved when a friend of mine called and said, hey, Amazon is letting people publish books directly. I run a company that does creative work. I want you to be an editor and to start the publishing wing of my company. And we teased at that for almost a year. And there was a book that I was really struggling. How do I edit this? Can I even edit? I don't have the technical skills to do this, but I really do want to write. And if it's not going to cost me anything, and if it's not going to take away from many of the other goals that I have, why not just do this and see what happens? And so I started writing books just with all of my spare time again, because I drifted away. We played Halo full time for a few years in the middle of that.
I mean, I'm just saying, I got a lot of hours into Halo and Skyrim. I feel your pain, and Fallout.
Yeah, no, we would reset the level if one of us died. Like, there were no respawns. We played Halo all the way through on the hardest level without anybody dying.
Oh, you played the ultimate version or ultimate mode.
I'm a sniper, dude. Anyway, so we got to this point where it's like, my writing is actually worth other people reading. I got to that moment where it wasn't just, I want people to read this, but the stories were good. And a lot of authors never really get there. They don't feel confident enough with their work to ever know if they're good enough or not. And I understand that. I sympathize with it. But I hit a moment of, this is good. I'm done with the developing into a writer. I am a writer now. I'm going to start publishing stuff, and we'll just see what happens. And that's where my first series, Sam and Sam, came from. And the structure is very untutored, and I can say terrible things about it, but I really don't like to, because a lot of my readers, that's their favorite series once they meet me and trust me as a writer, and they go back and they read this series and they adore it, and I adore it. It's a lot of fun. But just working my way into who am I as a writer, and how do I sound, and how do I write, it's been a process, but I've been working on it for a long time because it became available.
Okay. So given your engineering background, have you ever considered like the lit RPG, which is the popular genre right now? Because that's very math and crunchy.
It is very crunchy, and I have flirted with it several times. The problem is I just don't have the background in tabletop gaming to do it credibly, in my opinion. And I may yet take a swing at it at some point. And I've challenged myself with stuff that I didn't think I could do before, and it found out that was something that with the right preparation, I could do it. So I haven't ruled it out, but at this point, I'm just very hesitant, because that's a genre for people that really love tabletop gaming. And I don't have the background. I don't want to go in and play at their party when I don't belong there.
Well, you belong there if you want to be there. It is fun. So the problem people that are generally our age-ish run into is a lot of our RPG experience was digital, and so you don't always see the mechanics because they happen in the background.
Yeah.
So I feel your pain. That's why I wrote mine. I was working on mine with James Ward, because he did the crunchy stuff for me, and I just had to write the stabby stab scenes. And that's the fun part, right? You know, chopping dragons' heads off and the like. But yeah, I feel what you say about having to have and you can't use one that'll get you sued by whoever owns the engine. So you have to kind of skirt the file off the serial numbers very well.
Yep.
Because you could inadvertently think, oh, this is generic fantasy, and like, nope, it's trademarked and owned by insert company here.
Yeah. So. No, and my ignorance runs deep enough that I would be inventing a system from white paper, because I don't have a background to even try to build off of. And
I actually have one of my readers also went to school for game design. And so she was telling me once that like some of these lit RPGs, she reads it and she realized their game would never work because the math is off. And I'm like, only you. Because most people just go with it and they're like, it sounds right, we'll go with it. And she's like, no, I did the math. It's not a balanced game.
No, gamification is a really important theory for me at an abstract level, not really necessarily at the crunchy level, but at the sense of, if you have this set of incentives, how are people going to optimize intentionally or unintentionally with those incentives present? And we do a lot of stupid stuff, like, how do you figure out where do you go for lunch? Well, everybody gets 10 points. They get to assign those points to any of the options. You add up all of the values, and that's where we're going. It's simple gamification of everything that I really love changing the frame of decision making into how do you arrange incentives such that you get your best outcomes.
Yeah, that's actually how my strategy for losing weight. I found an actual calorie counting app. It used to be you'd mess up and your day is ruined and you're like, oh, what does it matter? Might as well indulge because I didn't get a good day. The Lose It app, which is what it's called, it tracks it by good week. So you can have a bad day and make it up the next day and still have a good week. And that's how you determine success or failure. Mm-hmm. And for me, that works because, man, I really want this ice cream. Well, I can just have soup tomorrow and balance it. I'm good. And being able to
found what's the best way to put it? So I found a website. So you can put those days, you have to plan for it, obviously, if you want to have like the ice cream or the creme brulee or whatever. You want to have that high calorie day. You can plan that because some of those other days you're going to be in the deficit, calorie deficit. And then so you can have essentially like a couple of cheat meals, a couple of desserts or whatever. So you don't feel bad because like, oh man, I ate all my calories today and I'm still hungry at 9 o'clock. So I'm going to have one fried egg, which makes you angry. I'd rather not eat because that's just going to make me angry.
Yeah. The Lose It app lets you do that too. And over the other apps I've tried, it lets you enter custom recipes so you can figure out the calories of if you're not cooking by a prepared recipe that tells you the exact calorie count, but only works if you follow their measurements exactly. This one lets you do whatever you're going to do, tweak it so it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and it'll figure out the calories for you, which I really dig.
That's the more because I measure with my heart.
Fair. So do you use the gamification concept that you talked about when you plan your world building?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've changed. I've evolved into a perspective that the writer is the god of the universe that they're building. They aren't the characters that are on the page. They're the force that shapes how those characters are going to behave. Not by changing what they are, but by changing their circumstances. And so you open a door and something with an incentive, with a motive force is there, and they react unexpectedly every time, but you can sort of build towards the conflict moments that need to be the set piece of the story. Without being quite so intrusive and so directive as to walk up and just say, this is what's going to happen. Leaving characters agency and using outside forces, outside events to move them forward most of the time I start a book and I don't really have any set piece moments in mind. But when I do have a moment that I really want to get to, that's how I'm doing that is by saying, okay, we're off on a big tangent and there's some real interesting value going on here. And there's a conflict that I need to remember and resolve, but we need to turn. And that's how I turn stuff is by, well, we're going to go blow something up somewhere else. And we'll go figure out how do we react to that. Or I add a new incentive of we've got somebody who really needs something and this person has become very valuable to my character set recently and let's go react to that.
You said blow something else up over there. Are you sure you weren't infantry in a past life? Because I mean that's kind of my bread and butter.
Oh, I like blowing things up.
You were an engineer, so it sounds like you're kind of toying with the concept of the illusion of choice for your characters, so it feels like it could have gone either way from a reader perspective.
No, it's not quite so impending a pressure. It's I need you to end up in this place, not I need you to do this thing. I have a location that I'm trying to get to. The book that I just put out, we are going up to a city in the mountains that we've never gotten to before. And the main character is absolutely flat out determined to not go. And it's like, okay, I have to push harder and I have to push harder because this is the whole plot of the book here that she's rejecting.
A lot of pressure.
And we've got to find not that she can't say no. I have to find the reason that she would say yes. Which is it's not that she doesn't get to make the decision, it's that the decision that she is making has to be influenced by more things that matter to her. It's very much it's sometimes with this character, it's a negotiation of coins and value, you know? Okay, so that's not paying you enough to do what I need you to do. How much do I have to pay you to get you to show up? and those are abstract. Usually she's a merchant's daughter, the coins matter. But usually it's an abstract of what is it that she's actually looking for to get her where we're going. And she's very autonomous and has her own sense of agency and always wandering off and doing her own thing. But we get through she doesn't abandon her friends. So if her friends are going, this is where we're going.
So I like one of the things I've read some of your books, not the whole series. Just, you write too fast, and my pocketbook only goes so deep. But one of the things I like is a lot of people that write fantasy forget the yin and yang development of technology, the sword and the shield. So as you make a better sword, they make better armor and a better shield. And so you don't like the sci-fi. The History Channel used to have the channel about where they'd have the contest where the two warriors that never met, two warrior societies, and they'd have them fight, and they just empirically test the various values of all the equipment, and they'd say who would win. And I think it's a cool idea. Pirates versus Spartans and all that stuff was cool, but it always ignored your technology is always defense is in counter to the offense, right? Like it's a yin and yang. I like when you developed your world, you factored all that in. Because I've seen a lot of people, it's like Civilization where they just cheat and they go one tree all the way up kind of thing. That like Nick did. I'm on to you, Nick. But yeah, you do one tree all the way up and then you're not balancing your one trick pony, right?
Gamification. If you've got a winning strategy, do it. Min-max that sucker.
See, I like that you factor that stuff in.
I say we get to the ship and just blow the whole site from orbit. Only way
Nuke it from orbit.
Nuke it from orbit. If it works, you have to come up with the reason that it isn't going to work.
Well, speaking of working, we've got to earn our supper today. So we're going to pause for a moment while we shamelessly shill for the man, and then we're going to dive face first into the world of Verida. Boom.
They came in peace, or so the aliens said. Here are 18 examples of their lies. Venture into the unknown with us. Who is out there? What will they want from us? Join us in the adventure of First Contact. Each story explores a different facet of aliens meeting humanity. Buy Contact This, a First Contact anthology, and read some of the industry's best storytellers today.
All right. Thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude. We greatly appreciate it. With that being said, so you came here at the beginning of the Verida world, and now you're wrapping it up. So, any plans, because your fans have asked for it, on a map of the world of Verida?
Yes, I have made promises and I intend to keep them. My goal is at some point in the next year or two to do a Kickstarter with premium hardbacks for Queen's Chair, and to include as a bonus or as an add-in or something as the strategy emerges. Map work and a reading order and all of that. The problem is when I did the original maps, I didn't have any sense of timeline scale for where things were. You ready?
All right, hold on. Let me put you in hello.
There it is.
This is the original map that I drew when I started the series.
How did it get on wood? Did you draw it on the wood?
And then my husband is amazing, and he stole my notebooks and conspired with his family to get a laser cutting printer that they had access to, and they cut the whole thing.
That's awesome.
And I cried.
No.
But yeah, I had the pieces of the world, but there's actually a whole river missing right there. It's gone. And I put it in the books, and I went back and I'm like, wait a minute, there's another river here. So there are pieces that showed up in the books that need to be added to the maps, and then the scale of where the things are. The pirate islands are nowhere near as close to the shore as I drew them, and the mountains are further away, and all of that, which I need to get those scales figured out. But I have the world drawn on various levels of scale, and I want to get that. And I'm trying to figure out, do I use my own art or do I procure an artist to do it? And I haven't made up my mind, but I really do intend to follow that through, because I know that I use a lot of directions and sizes and scales in my writing. And Verida is a messed up place, because anything that's downriver is south, regardless of whether it's actually going south.
Okay, so what I do for a living, most people know, and we work in places where the river meanders.
Yeah.
Throws you off. So we have a thing called Border Patrol North.
Uh-huh.
So it's like, oh, that's Border Patrol North. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then everybody just bought into it.
Anything downriver is south, and the further you get from the river, the closer you get to Cardinal. So our main character is not from Verida. She does not get it. She's really bad at this, and she'll routinely refer to something that is north, south, north of another place. And I know that that is infuriating if you're trying to actually get a picture of the place in your head. It's a really good characterization, and it's funny, but they're actually trying to picture the place because I describe it in detail with directions that are useless. So I know that I owe this to my readers, and it is very much on my list of priorities in the next couple of years to make sure that happens.
So I know when I write everything, that involves the terrain, right? And if you're writing mill sci-fi or mill fantasy, terrain matters because you plan your battles around it. I don't write the story until I know the land, but I also get someone else to do the map for me, because otherwise the danger is you can make every battle Thermopylae, and what made Thermopylae and the Alamo so significant is because the rarity of those situations where it's the perfect, counterbalance of offense and defense. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not every time. You don't get to fight every time like that. And so I have someone else do the maps for me, and then I plan the battle around that. So what do you do first? Is it the chicken or the egg, the map or the story?
In this
case, he's going to steal it. Whatever you tell him, he's going to steal
it. In this case, it was the cover.
Okay.
Third option. I met this character that I put her in something else, and I really knew her well. I knew how she looked. I knew how she moved. I knew her attitude. And then I found a pre-made cover with that freaking character on it. And it's like, no, I had no intention of writing a book with her in it. I was just playing. But I kept going back to the pre-made, and 6 months later, it was still for sale. And so I bought the pre-made. And then every time I touched this world, I'm handling this world with my fingertips, figuratively speaking. And every time I touch it, it grows another series. And it's like, this is insane. And so I'm writing other series. I'm trying to close some stuff out before I get to this. I've got this pre-made. And every time I go and think about it, I find more characters that have another series and all of their own plot. And so I started with the map because I knew that the geography of the place was going to be so central to the culture, because it's a drained swamp. It's really, really hot. It's really, really humid. It's got sort of a New Orleans kind of a geography to it. Everything would be underwater if they weren't working really hard. And that map, and then the mountains, because for me, mountains are really formative, and that's where the high elves live, and that's where the beauty is, that's where the wisdom is, and all of the cool air, cool dry air, and all of it just is a strong contrast from the mountains to the swamp, and all of it's connected by a river. And so it's got the seasons involved, it's got the water flow involved, and all of this stuff forms so much of their culture. I started with the character that I knew lived in this place, and the place that was going to forge her was a geography. So the map came before any of the real writing, but the character came before the map.
Okay. That makes sense. So how many individual series exist in the world of Verida?
4 ish. There are 4 main series with each of them have at least 4 novels in them, and they have a distinct cast. And then one of them has my underworld novel is a series of heists with an ensemble cast of like 8, but 2 of them are married, and they have this really intense separate relationship that's going on in between lines and in between books and all of the stuff that's going on with them, which is bordering on a romance that I wrote in novellas off to the side so that you can follow what's going on with the 2 of them without it being in the middle of this grittier heist world that I've built for the ensemble. And then I'm planning a set of novellas in 2 other settings that I've found much more recently. Those will be in the next couple of years I'm going to get to. So Verida is not actually closed, but this is the bookended end of the season of everything Verida. I'm going to do other stuff for a while, but I have other settings and other character sets that I'm going to go play with, and in the end, I'll probably end up with about 8 full character sets.
Okay. Are they all? Obviously, the world is fantasy, so that's traditional fantasy world.
Mm-hmm.
Are all of the series in the same subgenre though, or would, like you said, one's heist world or heist stories, one's like a almost a pirate story?
Oh. They all have a different treatment. Absolutely. The Queen's Chair is King's Guard and Queen and Castle, and off with nobility and honor, trying to save the future of the city. It's a classic adventure with a high premium on honor. The heist novels are heists. They're running around in the dark trying to find the stuff that's worth taking and take it. And then the pirates are very Caribbean colored, and it's a lot more laid back sort of a culture, and a lot more people die. And it's an adventure, but it's not structured with the same really rapid pace as the Queen's Chair books because it is nautical and things take their time. And then the Hill Chargers books is pastoral. They are up in the grasslands, and it is a nomadic family that tend their herds. And there's a lot about making cheese in those books, like it's a very, and I know. And there are adventure elements to it. And there's certainly a conflict arc for each book and for the 4 books as a collection. But people come and tell me that the pace of it is really what they love. It's about a family, and it's about them taking care of their animals and the seasons that go into that life. And it's much quieter and much slower a pace. We ride horses for all day, and that's all that happens that day.
So it's a slice of life story almost.
It almost is, yeah.
So are you a cheesehead? Is that why you mentioned the cheeses?
I wasn't, but as it's the economics. As you're looking at a family that has a herd of goats and a herd of cattle and a really, really prized herd of horses. They breed magic horses, and this is what they're known for. They're known as the horse breeders. And then they have their chickens, and they plant crops that they then abandon and hope that some of them will be there when it comes time for harvest. And that's the only real crop that they deal with. So when you have an animal-based lifestyle, what are you doing with those animals to create a sense of luxury for yourself? Because why wouldn't you elevate that stuff? So we're making yogurts, and we're making cheeses, and we have the leather craft that's going on, and all of that is a day-by-day thing. We're talking about how do you cut hooves in order to keep a cow healthy. I watch a lot of videos, and I read a lot about how do people who really care about this stuff do that. And we are seriously aging cheese in caves at this point. Um, so it's because I want to know who these people are and what they care about, and then really where do they put their energy and their thoughts, and that's what comes out. And I come out really passionate about some weird stuff for a while.
We like
That's
weird.
pretty cool. Yeah, we dive head first into the pool of weird. We love that stuff. For this series, is there a central theme? Like, obviously, I've never read any of them yet, but like, just for those that do follow you, is there, if there is a central theme for your series, what is it?
There's a central arc to it, but what's important to me is that the characters don't feel dragged around by it. In the Queen's Chair, they simply are. The central arc of the city is the city is sort of the shared character in all of these. There are crossover appearances, and those crossover appearances are critical to the central plot. But the city has its own life, and the queen is tasked with protecting it and guiding it, and she is the icon of the life of the city. So the
Okay.
Queen's Chair characters are running around trying to save the world all the time. The Hill Chargers families are very agnostic that any of this is going on, even as they are centrally involved in it in specific ways. And I've done crossovers from that series into my main series twice now, where they are absolutely critical to the success of what's about to happen. The pirates are absolutely critical to what happens at a couple of different junctures. And then the underworld heist characters are really, really well tied in with the Queen's Chair characters. They're favorite characters in both series. Those are just tighter series.
Okay.
So
that's really cool.
So for your world, like, it's obviously fantasy because they've got swords and you've got pirates, but is it black powder? Is it medieval? Is it, kind of a steampunk vibe? What would you consider the world itself?
Absolutely. The one rule is no gunpowder. I took that off the table as a technology that was simply never developed. And I'm looking at how does industry develop without gunpowder and without combustion. And most of it tends to follow along pretty familiar Renaissance type of technologies. So it's iron and steel, and the pottery is similar. I'm looking for language that's familiar from that kind of an era. If the language was used before 1850, that's an okay word to use in this context. But they are swords, and to a lesser degree archery. Archery is banned within the city because an earlier queen decided that was too dangerous for the people of such a close-hewn city to practice. So only the guard are allowed to practice archery.
Okay. But it certainly exists outside of the city then.
Yes, they're at war with the stone elves up in the mountains, and it's a generational war. At this point, they don't really expect that war to ever end. They don't speak a shared language. They have no paths of communication, but the stone elves want to purge the human race from the continent. So if they don't fight this war, the city will fall. And so the military aspect, a lot of the men are post-military, and that's one of the big paths up out of the low end of poverty is to go into the army and go fight the stone elves.
Okay.
I'm in. I'll join.
Sounds fun. So you don't have gunpowder. Do you use magical substitutes? So like flying ships because magic, or helium, because helium's not really a combustible.
No, it isn't. Those are all a little bit advanced for the technologies that I have. I'm structurally cribbing a little bit off of Pratchett, where you can watch those technologies evolve in real time. And I'm tempted to do a series of technology books that are just the invention of this next major thing and the people who are involved in inventing it. That's really fun to me. It hasn't featured strongly in the book so far because that's just super nerdy and distracting from the main plot. The one thing that magic really, really strongly influences is healing. That's the cheat that I took, because healing magics keep people alive who shouldn't have lived, and they reduce the consequences of battles down to hours instead of months. So I lean heavily on the healing magics, but there's not a lot of other magic technology that is significant. It's especially important, though, that humans can't work magic, so they're up against a stacked military in the Stone Elves, because elves and pixies can work magic, humans cannot. So they have magic weapons that are stronger and more durable and more lethal, and humans are just working with what they can forge with their hands and what they can carry.
So do you know what started the Hatfields and the McCoys? I mean, the elves versus the dwarves and all that. Like, where did the fight start?
I do know pieces of it. The one of the book that just most recently came out, book 7. Book 8 will be coming out when this airs through the magic of time travel and the internet. But book 7 is exploring a lot about that war and what are the options there. And we get into the religious roots of that war and a belief that anything that cannot work magic is an abomination.
So you mentioned religion. In some fantasy books, the gods exist, but they also interface with the world. In others, the gods are a concept, but you never really, other than the people talk about them, you don't actually see Zeus come down from the stars or the heavens or whatever, right? How do you approach the religion in your book?
Oh, I love the religion in this series. It's the Veridans are rather agnostic to atheist. They're very, very interested in the economic interests and the social interests of their own lives, busy enough that this isn't a question that they would typically ask. And if they do say something, they would say that the queen is their religion. They believe in her and she is them. And the relationship the city has with the queen is very intense at an abstract level. They don't really view her as a human being in many of the contexts that they would think of her. Outside of Verida, they have a religion that is based on 7 elementals. And they have an origin story where the 7 elementals came together and Idea comes down from the sky and touches the other 6, and all of life on the planet explodes into existence. And all of the other races and all of the other people have stories of their favored elemental and how that elemental views right and wrong and how they should behave and magic and all of that. So everybody else has a context, and the humans are just dawdling along selling stuff and being happy. And that's part of, I think, why there's such a strong sense of conflict, because all of these other species, all these other people groups have a really deep sense of relationship to the land and to the world and to light and dark and fire and all of that. And the humans just don't care. And there is a sense that I don't belong, that they don't belong here. They don't understand what's important to us.
Okay. So how many races exist here? You mentioned the dwarves and the elves, but what else do we have?
Yep. We have pixies who are happy and cheerful and very capable with magic. And they live everywhere. They live in Verida. They live in the mountains. They live in the grasslands. All of them typically hate salt water. So you get to the ocean and you don't get a lot of the magical fae races out there anymore. You have high elves who very seldom leave the high mountains and are largely very mysterious. And then you have low elves who are rather like gophers, who run around causing mayhem. And there's sort of an idea of a leprechaun in there, where they do whatever they want. They have their own language, and the Veridans view them as animals more than as people. And then there are a few others running around. That there are really dangerous fae up in the mountains that will kill you for existing. that are more like animals than they are like people, even though they have language, they have the self-awareness that we would characterize them as people, but the relationship is with one of a hunting animal. And so you really want to avoid them if you're up in the mountains, because the magic is stronger there. The Fae tend to stay there, and if they find you, they will kill you. So there's another half a dozen races up in the mountains.
Speaking of killing you, we mentioned the dragon that Nick printed, so I'm going to show it real quick.
He's gorgeous.
There he is. Yeah.
So, and he painted it. And then what are these that are on the screen? They look like patches almost. So I think these are your stickers. Can you talk about them so that
Absolutely. Yeah, they're available on my merch. I have a merch store through Redbubble that is just there for, it's not really intended to make money so much as just because making things that exist out of this world is really satisfying to me. These are all places in the Veridan world other than the drink tea, which is, honestly, I want that to turn into an underground movement. I'll explain that in a moment, if I may. And then the 4-box. The 4-box are the symbols of the 4 series. You have the coin, the one in the bottom middle. The coin is for the Queen's Chair series. The economics and trying to create order in the world. The next one over is the heist cast. That is the livery symbol of the family that leads the heist. The wing underneath is from the pirates, and that's the pirate mark that all of them wear. So the pirate queen requires that all the pirates have a mark in order to participate in piracy. So they all wear it on their neck. And that symbol is for that series. And then the horseshoe is for the nomadic tribe. So that's
tattoo ideas for me. Yay.
So I have the 4 symbols. Those are really central to the 4 series. Kezia is an artist colony in Verida that doesn't really consider itself to be in Verida, and all of the crazy people are there. And I refused to cross the river and go there until I really had to, because I knew as soon as I went, I was going to find a new series there, and I did. So all I knew about Kezia for a long time is that there were naked men there, and Kezians are crazy. And both things were true, but their passion is for art, and their currency is art, and they are very cool and very interesting and very challenging to me, because that worldview is different from one that I've written before and one that I've even really thought hard about before. And so that was really, really rewarding when I finally did get there. Castaway is the main pirate island. That's their port of call. That's also the most preferred image out of all of these. Everybody really likes the island image when they're ordering merchandise. The Wolfram Mountains are the mountain range, and then the river image through that. And then Remming is a pixie city up to the north, where the pixies remember the old ways. And the pixies there are not happy and charming and capable. They will kill you dead. They're fantastic. And then drink tea is the theme out of book 6, which has become more and more near and dear to my heart here in the last little bit, where there's a civil war brewing inside the city. The pixies are convinced that the humans don't care about their well-being, and that they need to defend themselves from the humans. And the humans have no idea, but the truth is they don't care about the well-being of the pixies, and the pixies are increasingly agitated to take up arms against the humans. And there's a moment of, how do you fix this when the two sides have absolutely nothing in common? They have no shared culture, but they have to be able to live together. And the resolution that comes out of that is, you have to drink tea together. If you want to save the world, drink tea. And so I've been asking a few of my readers who that I have actual conversations with through Facebook and other places, if they would be interested in getting these stickers and putting them on subways throughout the world, because this is really one of the things that I believe about the world is if you want to save the world, you need to drink tea. You need to sit down with people and just be human beings together.
That's one of the things I found when I traveled overseas is they say math is universal language, but everywhere I went, I found someone who played rugby. And we might not know anything else about each other, but we knew what a scrum was. And, from there, conversation that wasn't political was had. And it's always that one unifying thing, whether it's tea or coffee or a game or a sport or whatever.
All the same language, that same idea. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sports and beverages, man. Those are the great unifiers.
All right. So this is important. What do they eat when they drink their tea?
Bread.
Crumpets? I don't even know what a crumpet is, but
crumpet is bread.
I call them dainties just because I'm copping out on having to describe the process of baking all of the things that Veridans eat. But what you eat in Verida is bread. Bread they are proud of their street bread. And you go outside of Verida and they use bread with other things. But when you get up in the morning and you're going to work in Verida, you buy bread from a street merchant. You don't eat breakfast at home because the bread from a street merchant hot out of the oven is the thing in Verida. And Verida bread just makes
do they put butter on it? Is it like fresh out of the oven, you put some butter on it?
They give you a piece of wax paper and they put your bread on there, and then they'll have seasoned butters and house butters and various things.
Oh,
yeah.
There was a place outside of where I went to grad school.
My inner fat kid is going crazy. I want this bread.
Me too. They would do cinnamon butter that they would coat the biscuits in, the rolls.
Or garlic butter or pepper butter. Oh my God. The possibilities are endless, sir.
They are.
You've just single-handedly ruined our diet in one conversation because now we're like gaining weight just thinking about it.
You have your baker that you go to every morning because they have the best bread with the best butter, and you
don't be mad, JR. I'm going to go down with you on this ship of.
All right. Chloe, this is an important question. How do you feel about sticky bread?
I don't have any specific objections to it, but that is not how Verida prepares it.
Okay, Nick, yay or nay?
Oh, I like sticky bread. I like bread.
Bread.
What about bread pudding? Do they do bread pudding?
I consider tortilla a bread.
Bread pudding is delicious, but they don't have it in Verida.
They do a porridge that is with a crushed raw wheat and honey that's cooked really hot, and it smells delicious. But
I'm going to fast for like 48 hours and visit your world and just eat all of its food.
Have you tried like a cookbook for the recipes?
If they got a shepherd's pie, I'm like never leaving.
I
should look at a cookbook. That's a little bit extravagant, but I love it.
I don't know. I know Katie Cross tried it and it didn't for her chiclet.
I was just about to ask that, JR. I was like, I know we got a writer that made a cookbook.
I know. From what she said, they don't really sell. It's a neat gimmick that people will say they like, but when it comes to actually buying it, not so much.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of a cool idea. All right, so we have some of the other pictures. Let me pull this up. These logos that you sent me.
Yes.
What are these?
Those are the 4 logos associated with each of the different series, but I hired myself an artist to make them into card backs.
Okay.
List.
The cards.
Yes. So this is the dream Kickstarter that someday I will.
You got them in person?
Yes.
Let me see. Let's see.
Yes. So someday I will get to the Kickstarter for these because I'm really, really in love with. They play cards. That's what you do in Verida. You sit down at a bar or at a restaurant or somewhere, and if you don't have something to do right this minute, you take out a deck of cards and you start shuffling, and it is simply an invitation for somebody to come and sit with you and play. Everybody carries a deck of cards. You get one as a gift when you leave your parents' house. It's a big part of their culture. So we made cards, and this particular deck, we have custom faces for them.
Nice.
And every suit has has images associated with characters from a different series. So those are the pirate ones.
Okay, so, oh my God. So the characters in your world eat delicious bread with exotic butters and they play cards?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Do they have board games too?
Nope.
That's my dream
Board
life.
games take up too much space. This is something you can keep in a
If
satchel
they have
on your
cigars,
hip.
I'm in.
Yep. So
Do they
these
have
are
cigars?
these are the Queen's Chair characters.
Nice.
Who did the art of those? Those are amazing.
They're AI with a bunch of modification. We worked really hard after the AI images, but that's one of the hesitations I have, is because I don't want to get crucified for selling something that was originally AI. There's a
will not
lot of
hold it
work
against you.
after. But yeah.
No, AI is a tool, you know.
Yeah. I love the horse
Those are really
ones
cool.
so hard. I love the horse ones. And then
even
the
harder now.
underworld guys. Oh, these guys.
Oh, that looks like the bandits from England. What was it?
Peaky Blinders.
Peaky Blinders, yeah. So what games do they play? Obviously, that looks like a standard deck of cards as far as we
It's a standard deck of cards. That
Oh,
is
that's
my
nice.
white princess. And she is
that's
one
nice.
of my favorite characters. She's so amazing. The
I
fact
like
that we got something that actually was so close to what she looks like in my head.
Nice.
But so they
it's
play
a card set that you would think would be from like late 1800s, early 1900s, like Victorian era.
Yeah.
You know.
So what games?
Even though they didn't do that back in those days, because
they did. Actually, these are the we looked up card decks from the 1700s and 1800s and found some images that would have worked. The quality of the images was low, and trying to figure out how to boost the image quality was difficult. But looking at those, there's a realization that this is a sort of a brand. That's the wrong word, but this is a feel that we can replicate. And then these two.
Hold on, I'm gonna put you back on the solo screen.
Yes.
Ooh, I like the ram.
Oh, those are amazing.
He's a
donkey.
I do like the
and these are characters from
I like the donkey too.
People will know. The people who have read these books will be able to name these animals. These are really So the Jokers are hilarious.
When can we buy those? The card deck?
I'm working toward it, and it's a lot about just working up the
work faster, Chloe. We need those in my life. My life.
I'm so excited about these. They're beautiful. There will be 4 different decks, and they're going to come in a custom box. And I will send you a set of rules of the card and dice games of Verida, because they have
get out of town. A custom box?
Yeah, 4 box. You could get it as a 4 or as a 2. Yes.
You're killing me, Chloe. You're killing me right now.
What kind of game are they playing?
I'm going to play.
He's getting excited. It's breaking the internet.
He's breaking the internet. I wrote custom rules for about a dozen games. Let me count them out. I think I can't see it now. I've covered it. I've written rules for about a dozen different games that are mentioned in the books. The pirates particularly favor Jackflip, and sitting at a bar in Verida, you play Pirate Islands an awful lot. Queen's Initiative is one that we played up in the mountains quite a lot. They're all just custom games. And then I wanted to do dice games, but somehow as I was writing, the dice games just didn't come up as often. But getting custom pour dice was on the list of things that I might attempt.
Nice. I mean, I'm a dice goblin, so give me more.
Yep.
The dice goblin.
Yeah, no.
So
I'm sorry, that struck me funny for some reason.
Have you played?
I wanted to use standard dice and standard decks so that they are interchangeable with stuff that's easy to get. So it's not just a niche Verida product, but I wanted to have the custom decks that are just Verida.
Yeah, that's almost though, because the art and stuff, you almost don't want, because it's Kickstarter, you might not be able to get them again. You almost don't want to ruin them by actually using them, though.
So get 2.
Yeah. But use them. Like, it comes on Kickstarter. I'm gonna use them because I like that worn look, and that's the only way you can get that is by playing with them.
Yeah.
So I actually, when I bought
$6.
I bought a deck of cards that was like quick loot generated and quick NPC generated for like when I was DMing. And I was because they were so pretty, I didn't want to ruin them. So I actually took them and I scanned all of them in and I printed them out and I just cut them out. And I used the printout version to actually use when I was gaming so I could keep the pretty shinies pretty and shiny. So what do you like? The world obviously exists. You're wrapping the series up. If someone wanted to start, there's obviously you have a suggested reading order, but could you read any of the series by themselves as standalones?
Absolutely. The intention is that you can read book 1 of any series, and there are no spoilers in there for any of the other series. For Hill Chargers and Ever and a Pirate's Eye, the Pirate series, the crossovers are relatively minor, where it's not going to have spoilers for the other series to have read those first at a serious level. Reading through Queen's Chair all the way to the end first does have, I think, some disappointing spoilers for the others if that was the way that you were to do it. So my recommendation would be to start where you have the strongest fancy, and then make sure that you quit at book 4 if you really want to go through and do the rest of them, and follow the suggested reading order for the rest of them.
Now, is this suggested reading order series order or chronological order?
It is strategic series order. It's actually it's also the publish order with, I think, one exception. Because I built the plot intentionally forward, knowing what was going on in the other series at the same time. I have a chronological order posted in my Facebook group, which I think I can pull that if you're really interested. But I put it on a dormy background because I don't know how it reads if you read it chronologically. I did not pay any attention to how does the story feel if you're reading from the start of one book to the start of the one that starts next, because some of them span multiple books in other series, and it gets really crazy. So the suggested reading order is building the series plot in what I think is the best order for that. Chronological would be quite a ride.
Okay. So this is the last as we're wrapping it up, because we don't want to be here all night. I know you've got kids. Obviously you wrote this by yourself, but in a dream world where you could have any of author that you've loved throughout the course of time come in and co-write with you in this world, who would you pick?
Terry Pratchett, without hesitation. Oh man. I like to tell people that I have no discernible sense of humor. I've been tested. My characters have a sense of humor, but I don't. And I love Terry Pratchett's ability to make me laugh in the midst of something that's really meaningful and really serious and really thoughtful, but it's still really funny. And it has just such a good sense of reality that that's what life is. It matters, and everything that you do is important. But if you can't laugh, you're not living. And just his skill as a writer telling stories is just everything about what I want to be as a writer. So yes, I would the day that he died, I genuinely cried all day. It was really a big loss because he was such a figure for my life.
Big hugs, Chloe.
Okay. And if you could have anybody to do your art, I don't know if you follow art. I tend not to know artists by name, but if you're picking your favorite artist ever, who's drawing images from your world?
I feel unprepared. There are the bronze plate art that goes into the really old classic European stories like Dante.
Right.
That's really a look that I would love to have, especially in the Queen's Chair series. Just that really classic black and white with the high drama, high action scenes going on in those plates. That would be incredible.
I know of a few guys that could that are still alive. Thank God. Because what you've kind of described, like I would go with Bernie Wrightson, and he died a while ago. Um, George Jimenez. I'm naming comic book guys because that's what that's my art. That could pull that off, and it would look really cool. A lot of
All right. Last
negative
question.
and positive space.
Yeah.
Last question is, given how Hollywood lately has destroyed every franchise that they've touched, but there are also some really good creative visual medium television, Netflix, whatever programs out there.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be willing to trust your baby with a creator if they let you have a little bit of oversight so they didn't screw it up?
God, please say no.
I wrestle with this constantly because I want to see my books made, but at the same time, I don't play well with others. And I've avoided working with other authors, not because I don't like the other authors, but because I don't want to share. And I like they do their work, and that's fantastic.
Oh, it's so hard to let other people play in your sandbox.
Yeah. But if I were to do it, and what's really funny is anytime in the last like 5 years, if you asked me, who would I trust this property to, I would have given you one name. And here in the last 6 months, I've gone, nope, that was the wrong decision. It's Henry Cavill. Because Henry Cavill has such a passion for the original property and such a charisma and a power within the industry that he could.
If they vary from the original like source, he's gonna let you know.
Yep.
And he did that with The Witcher.
Yep.
But that's definitely a dude you want on your team, though.
Yeah.
Because he is the king of the nerds. Like, we all bow to him. I offer a sword.
Yes.
You know, he plays Warhammer. Yes. He loves D&D. Like, he's built like an Adonis. Like one of
us.
But,
I know.
Yeah. So,
but
what
inside,
about
he's one of us.
So would you settle for, because it's a lot easier to get the kind of creative control you want, like animated, anime style, cartoon style, whatever? Would you be open for something like that just because it's cool?
Those aren't my aesthetic, so I don't know that I have a sense of trust for the industry to know that they could end up with something that matches what I see. It's just really hard for a yes there, because I don't watch that for my own media. To do something that was largely CG, which is not cheaper, but in the same vein, I'm not necessarily no. I have actors that I've been casting for so long and watching them work as these characters. The idea of turning that into a computer generated or a cartoon version of it feels less human to me. So I hesitate.
Is Simon Pegg on your short list of one of your characters? Because he's awesome and I love watching him. So
go ahead.
He is a lot of fun. I have trying to think. I keep putting Andrew Scott in various places just to watch him, because he's fascinating to go do stuff.
Yeah.
And you can put him in anything and he'll just go do it. And it's like, that's amazing. How did you do that?
Yeah.
And
he's one of those versatile guys. Yeah.
I've been watching Aidan Gallagher, who plays 5 on Umbrella Academy, and playing a character who is simultaneously in his 60s and his early teens as successfully as he has just blown me away. So I really like to go watch him play just random stuff all over the place.
I've already casted to him as Damian Wayne in a Batman movie. So
yeah.
Because he would do really well in that.
I can't wait to see what he does after Umbrella Academy. Like, I'm not wishing him out of the series, but as long as it's ending, I cannot wait to see what he does next.
It's going to be superhero related. That's going to build his career.
I can see it, yeah.
So are these books available in hardcover, the Verida books?
They are not. They are all available in paperback, and then we're working towards hardcovers, but there are decisions to be made there. And the one that I really want to do is custom high-end through Kickstarter, where one of the distributors that does those has recently added the ability to do foiled covers.
Ooh.
And
Those are
sprayed
awesome.
edges. So I want to take the emblems of each of the series and print them across the pages of all 4 books, and then put it into a sleeved box set.
Wow.
I am blown away. Yeah, I'm blown away at the opportunities right now.
So have you gotten? You mentioned some of the art that you shared that's popular. So have any of your fans gotten any of that tattooed?
Nobody's gotten it tattooed, but a few people have threatened. It's really cool to see the
skin right here.
So that's the one of the most, I think, the most humbling things as an author. I actually had people take one of the prayers that I made up in one of my books, and they tattooed that on their body. And I'm like, you could have just got it on a T-shirt that you could take off when you wanted to, but they were like, no.
Yeah, but I wanted it on my inner thigh, JR. I don't know why you're hashing this out right now.
But so I think that's kind of cool that sometimes reader or authors unintentionally can touch lives in that respect. It's a form of its own immortality, I think.
It is an incredible idea. Yeah.
So you mentioned nobody's got tattoos yet, but they've threatened. What about fan art or I guess fan fiction? Any of that have you seen yet?
A little bit. The direction that it's mostly gone is the merchandise that I'm selling. I get pictures of that out in the real world, and that's just really exciting. This is a zebra wearing a hat that has your logo on it, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's real and it's out there.
That's such a good feeling.
It is.
Okay. Nick, did you have any other questions before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I'm probably going to get a tattoo of one of those emblems, though, because they're cool.
They look cool. Yeah.
Probably the pirate one.
So because you have swords in your book, you do realize that makes, if you wanted to buy a sword, I'm just saying hypothetically because you wanted to have it on your wall, it is now tax deductible because it is a business expense. I'm just saying.
So you got a sword.
Typical nerd, katana.
I block things out as I'm writing action sequences, so I have my tools back there.
I actually, for that, I bought some hard plastic training swords, and I used those to block it out. And then when we were doing the Egyptian stuff, James actually sent me a Kopesh, which is kind of cool. I almost, trying to swing it around the first time, getting used to the balance difference, I did almost stab myself in the neck, but I managed. I am okay. It's because it's like a scythe. It's like a, what is it? The one you cut the wheat with, but the scythe. There we go. It's like a scythe, but the blade sharp part is on the opposite side you would think. So I almost got myself trying to see what I could do for like getting that scene just right. See, so we literally bleed for our art, people. Have you almost stabbed yourself that you'll admit to?
I tend to be very, very cautious with live blades, but I have a specific type of steel that shows up in one of the stories that is somewhat related to Damascus steel in how it looks. And we've bought Damascus steel daggers that I'm in love with those. They're so pretty.
Yeah, the balance makes more of a difference than people think. Which is they've actually had a sword fighter go in and look at the Jedi stuff and talk about why the lightsaber wouldn't work. And it's not because the technology isn't feasible, because they could do some of that now. The issue is the balance, and you would probably inadvertently cut yourself because there's no, like, it's just a stick and there's no counterbalance. So it could be easy to overextend either way and cut yourself.
Mm-hmm.
No, the lightsaber works scope. So if you ever gone to a science museum and dealt with a gyroscope type thing, you'll cut yourself because you don't have the force to counteract the gravitational proportional pulls of the gyroscope. So
hand wavium.
Hand wavium. Well, and they also kind of throw a little bit of science in there. So it's fun. Don't get me wrong. I love hand wavium. I think that's probably one of the funnest things ever. Is like, why does this work? I'm like,
Sparkle jazz hands of science fiction and fantasy.
I write science fiction in space. I am all about the making up stuff that solves problems that the solution couldn't possibly exist. But whatever, I named it, and the dude who discovered it, and we're moving on.
Absolutely. Yep. All right. So as we wrap this up, what are you writing now? Once this, because obviously this is going to air when the last book is up for sale. So presumably you will have moved on to the next big grand adventure.
Yeah.
What is that adventure?
No more mercy. No, I am returning to a space opera that I wrote 4 books of. I think 2019 is when that came out. And I've gotten a lot of emails asking for more titles in that series. And it's one of those, a smuggler crew and their ship having adventures around the galaxy where you can always
bunch
go
of
have
miscreants. I love it.
Yes. You can always go have another adventure somewhere else in the galaxy. So I'm going to do another 4 books in that series because they've been waiting. They've been asking. They've been reading everything else as they're patiently waiting. So it's time. And then I'm going to go do 4 more books in another couple of series to just continue to hit that demand where it is and continue to give readers content where they really love what's going on there. I'm going to do a Kickstarter with that series with exclusive hardbacks, foiled and stuff. And that'll be my first Kickstarter to test the waters out before I get really invested in the Verida Kickstarters where I go nuts and do cards. This one is going to be rather more simple with just the books. But that's going to be part of the relaunch of that series content. So that's what's coming in September through December of this year.
Dig it.
Ambitious, but okay. And where on the wild interwebs can listeners and viewers at home find you?
You can find me at chloegarner.com. It reroutes to blenderfiction.com, which is me. I am the blender. You put all of the stuff in and you get something completely random back out. And you can find me on Facebook. My Facebook group is the best place in the whole world as far as I'm concerned. This is where all of the people who really like my worlds almost as much as me and sometimes even more than me hang out and talk and do all of the spoilers on what's up next.
You know, funnily enough, Nick and I are also blenders. You pour in the whiskey and the Coke and you get the shenanigans.
Shenanigans.
Coffee.
Or coffee. I wonder if they have a coffee flavored whiskey. Could that work?
They do.
Oh, absolutely.
No, they have that at Coffee Brand Coffee. There's a bourbon flavored coffee. It's amazing.
No. What a coffee flavored bourbon, the other way, the alcoholic version.
Oh, Jameson did that. Jameson's? Yeah, they have an Irish whiskey that was distilled in a coffee barrel or something like that. It's like really weird, but it's good.
I've seen coffee flavored beer at the local brewery, but they didn't survive COVID. So unfortunately that business is shut down and I can't get it anymore.
Just get a Guinness. It's pretty much the same.
All right. Well, if you have any drink suggestions that you want to throw our way, adult beverages or otherwise, hit them up in the comment section. And you can find us, dear listener, on our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blades podcast, where we link to all the things, the bits, shoots, the rumbles, the YouTubes, the TikToks, and the Twitters. We have our email at blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com for professional purposes only. We link to our Facebook group and Facebook page. And more importantly, we link to Madam Stabby Stab on the Instagram, Twitter, and the email. Maybe when she finishes drying her nails, she'll join us on another podcast. And in the meantime, we have the website. Now that Spotify has taken over, it's a bunch of gobbledygook. Trust me, go to the Linktree, find us, go to the website for Spotify, and you can support the show for as little as 99 cents a month. You can help keep the lights on. Every penny helps. These shows are not free to produce. Or you can support the show more directly over at buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that is for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink that coffee brand coffee until their hair turns brown. And they're almost there, people. You got to undo the white by making them drink more coffee, and then Nick's gray hair will come back to brown. That's how this works.
No, I'm digging the white hair, man. I earned this. I want
it. Mine's not going gray. It's just falling out and retreating. So, that's kind of the reason I have my avatar has hair, because I don't. It's a shame. It's a thing, people. All right. With that, thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley. This was the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. All right. Thank you for coming back. I'm glad we could kind of bookend your Verida experience.
I am so glad we got.
He wanted to throw that I in there so bad.
So bad.
Verida just sounds like it works for me, but that's not it.
It's just like, yeah.
So we appreciate it, and you'll have to come back when you got the new thing too, because
absolutely.
We've talked about Verida, but we haven't talked about the other stuff yet.
Oh.
I love space operas, so let's do this.
All right. With that, we will see you next time, people, and the out button. Wait.